Hello students, today we are going to understand the principles of modern labor legislation. Now, before we begin, think about this. Every law has a philosophy behind it. No law is made in isolation. Similarly, labor laws across the world were created with certain guiding principles in mind. These principles reflect not only the protection of workers, but also the needs of society, the economy, and even international obligations. Let's take them one by one. The very first principle is protection. Imagine the early days of industrialization, long hours of work, no rest, no safety, children working in factories and women working at night without protection. Workers were too weak to fight for their rights on their own. That is why the state had to step in. The earliest example came from England with the Health and Morals of Apprentices Act. In India, we saw the Factories Act in the year 1800. Later, laws like the Factories Act, the Mines Act, and the Child and Adolescent Labor Act ensured maximum working hours, weekly rest, safety measures, and prohibition of child and women labor in hazardous jobs. So, the essence of this principle is simple: protect the weak from exploitation and protect all from industrial hazards. The second principle is social justice. Now, what do we mean by this? Social justice is about equality in social relationships. For centuries, certain groups of workers like slaves, bonded laborers, women, and migrant workers were discriminated against. To correct this injustice, laws like the Bonded Labor System Abolition Act and the Equal Remuneration Act were passed. Even earlier, the Indian Slavery Act of 1843 was enacted to abolish slavery. The idea was, if we want real justice in society, we must remove the age-old discrimination and uplift the vulnerable. The third principle is regulation. This is about maintaining balance in industrial relations. Think of the employer and the worker like two sides of a seesaw. In the beginning, employers were much stronger, so laws like the Trade Unions Act gave workers the right to organize. Later, when some unions misused their strength, laws like the Industrial Disputes Act also put checks on strikes and unfair labor practices. So regulation means ensuring neither side becomes too powerful. Instead, balance and industrial peace must be maintained. Next comes the welfare principle. Students, remember that protection alone is not enough. Workers also need better living and working conditions. That is where welfare legislation step in. Examples include the Mica Mines Labor Welfare Fund Act, the BD, Workers' Welfare Fund Act, and provisions under the Factories Act. These provided canteens, housing, health, and even educational facilities for workers and their families. So here, the state acts not just as a protector, but also as a caretaker of workers' overall well-being. Now imagine a worker who suddenly falls sick, or loses a hand in an accident, or grows old and can no longer work. Without income, the whole family suffers. To reduce such hardships, we have the principle of social security. Laws like the Employees State Insurance Act 1948, the Employees Provident Fund Act 1952, and the Maternity Benefit Act 1961 provide medical care, pensions, death benefits, and maternity leave. This principle tells us that workers are not just tools for production. They are human beings who deserve security in times of need. Then comes prevention. Sometimes social customs and practices exploit people. Think of dowry, child marriage, sati, or untouchability. These social evils made lives of women and weaker groups miserable. Therefore, the state passed laws like the Dowry Prohibition Act, 1961, the Protection of Civil Rights Act, and the SC Cent Prevention of Atrocities Act. So here, the principle is to prevent exploitation at the root, even if it comes from social customs. Now let us connect labor laws with the economy. Industrial peace, good working conditions, and fair wages are not only good for workers, but also for the nation as economy. If workers are healthy and motivated, productivity rises. Laws regulating strikes, providing dispute settlement machinery, ensuring better wages actually contribute to economic development. So labor welfare and economic growth go hand in hand. Finally, we have the principle of international obligation. India is a member of the International Labour Organization, ILO, and the United Nations. Once we ratify conventions on working hours, child labor, equal pay, or maternity protection, we must implement them through our laws. That is why many of our labor laws reflect ILO standards. For example, maternity protection, minimum age of employment, and worker right to organize are all inspired by international commitments. Now students, every coin has two sides. These principles sound wonderful, but they also bring challenges. For example, when laws increase wages and benefits, the cost of production rises. Small employers may struggle to compete in global markets. Trade unions sometimes misuse their power, leading to strikes and unrest. International standards are often too high for developing countries to implement. And when employers try to cut costs, they may hire fewer workers, increasing unemployment. So, while labor laws protect workers, they also need a balance to ensure national development and industrial peace. To sum up, the principles of modern labor legislation are like guiding lights: protection, social justice, regulation, welfare, social security, prevention, economic development, and international obligation. They aim to balance the interests of workers, employers, and society. If this is useful for you, please like and share the video and subscribe our channel. If you want PPT, then visit PPT section of my website. Link is given in description box. If you would like to purchase my book on labor law and industrial relations, the link is provided in the description box below. And if you want to practice free multiple choice questions on this topic, you can visit the multiple choice questions section on our website. The link for that is also given in the description box. Thanks for watching. In our coming videos, we will study more about labor legislation and also look at important acts one by one. So stay connected.